Everybody, welcome to Stack Your Points. Thanks for watching and listening. And this is the Friday Q&A segment. So your questions, we answer them, sometimes up to an hour, sometimes it creates its own episode in and of itself. So if you have questions, always feel free to drop them on the YouTube channel or email us at stackyourpoints@gmail.com. But we hope you enjoy this week's Q&A session. Thanks for watching and listening.
Welcome back to another episode of Stack Your Points. As always, I'm Matt from the Matt Clausen YouTube channel, joined this week by RJ from Do You Take Cards?
I am doing pretty well today. The good thing about Mondays is this is when we record, so I get to see 2 out of 3 of my favorite co-hosts.
Also, newsflash, RJ returned to YouTube last week.
I recorded a video on American Express. I'm going to be using that channel to explain certain positions I hold or give more context to my overall view of cards.
Sounds solid. How are you today, Tariq?
I'm good. And like RJ said, it's a Monday, and the silver lining with Mondays is that when they're over, we're here. And this makes it worth, at least on my side of the globe that we are, worth staying past midnight. I'm glad we did this. I know we talk about it and we don't mention it very often, but I'm glad this is a thing.
It is indeed a thing. It's a very fun thing. We are without Lonnie this week. He is traveling.
On assignment. Lonnie's on assignment.
So
his assignment is vacation.
I try to be nice about it, but Lonnie's not with us this week, but we have a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to jump into your questions, which is great because I just finished doing my taxes and that was not a fun time. We're going to start with Jason, who asks, for a long time, people with a business have been able to apply for business credit cards and all the bonus and perks associated with them, despite the fact that their business might not be super duper legit. What changes that have nothing to do with business verification could banks do to slow this down?
I think we've seen it with Chase just being a little bit more picky about how the ink train chugs along. I don't know, without doing some sort of verification for the business, how likely it is that other than just velocity is ever going to be a factor, right? Maybe like the numbers you put in having some basis in reality. Like if you're putting in that you make $1,000 a year, maybe that 4th Amex card doesn't get approved, right? But does it actually make sense that this business needs the business platinum, the business gold, the Delta Reserve, the Blue Business Plus, and you make $1,000 at the end of the year? So I think that if they did things like that, it could slow down. But as much as I love this question, because I do think we talk about business cards too casually, or at least don't properly enumerate some of the drawbacks to business cards, like the banks don't care. If you say you're a sole prop and you buy something on the card that's purely personal, if I buy a Snickers on my Delta Reserve business card, I'm not breaking a law, right? I'm not even breaking the terms of the card as a sole prop. So it becomes this really gray area where you're just basically giving up some protections and you're also assuming some liability that you might not. And we're like, if they charge me $300 for the Snickers and Amex is just in a bad mood that day because it's a business card, they don't actually have to do anything to help me get my money back. But again, we don't talk about those drawbacks. We treat them like personal cards with a small asterisk instead of business cards that could be used a little more personally. I struggle with this topic. I have business cards. I use them. They're some of my most favorite cards in terms of what they do.
Sure, Tariq.
So yeah, I think we had obviously the episode of business cards where we gave the disclaimers despite every one of us. But aside from that, I think beside what you mentioned, like with kind of Chase with the ink train slowing down, the only other thing that I could think of would be just the banks not necessarily reporting the payment history on the personal credit, but having the opened accounts. Because we get the hard pull on your personal credit whenever you apply for the card. If it was a thing where they would then lead to the infamous Chase Rule 524, where I would be God knows how high over 24 because of it. If they started doing that, it would probably quell the velocity of business cards because it wouldn't be that incentive for people in the game to get business cards because it would still add to your personal credit. In some fashion of not necessarily reporting the payment history, but just still showing the open account. that would definitely slow it down. If anything, it would really start to have people evaluate if these business cards are worth getting, especially with them sometimes having higher spend.
I wouldn't have gotten the business green if it hit my personal side.
I can't believe you got that correct.
I got 25,000 MR points for 3,000 in spend. A business card is 15,000 for 4,000 of spend. So I actually saved $1,000 and got 10,000 more points.
I think there's a good compromise where if you're doing like business cards, the easy answer is if you're applying as a sole prop without an EIN, you're just using your social security number. Banks should consider that if you're taking the time and setting up an EIN and you're taking the time to set up like a business checking account. The bank's not verifying what's happening on the business side of your account or like your business checking accounts, which Chase can, because that's where one of my two business checking accounts is. I do think you could see some banks starting to crack down on some of the verification. They could ask for your Schedule Cs. They could ask for, if you're applying as an LLC, ask for your incorporation papers.
Barclays?
But do you
Sure.
think they actually want to? And I mean more Chase and Amex, right? Like they want to slow the ink train down. But if you have ink cards and you're not doing like what the Amex Rat Squad would pull you over for,
Yeah.
I don't think if you have a Blue Business Plus, you spend 30,000 a year on it, you always pay your bill, and you're not like showing any signs of manufactured spend or anything. I think Amex is perfectly fine with that if you have a business or not.
Oh, no, they'd much rather extend you a gold invitation. They'd much rather extend you a business platinum invitation. If banks really wanted to slow everything down, all of your sole prop cards, and they may be legit sole prop cards or they may be business sole prop cards, all your sole prop cards applying to your personal credit would instantly stop it. Ink train dead. But they could have carve outs where if you're applying through an EIN, right? And you're taking the time to show that you're working to be like legitimate, then there could be not a sidestepping, but okay, we understand that you've applied for business cards on a personal side, but now it looks like you're actually establishing a business. So like that should be a different look than, oh, here's his fifth Ink Unlimited with his social security number. We know what's going on. We want the spend. So whereas, oh, they've actually taken the time to set up an EIN, look like they're separating their earnings. So this person's legit. This person will treat as legit.
Do you think they could almost do, I mean Chase specifically here because they're the ones that get the churn sort of the most, have a one bite at the apple. If you have a sole prop with your social security number, sure, we'll give you one of each of the ink cards. Not that anyone is taking the premier, but just for a moment, pretend, right? Like you can
Sure.
get one each, but you cannot get you can't close the cash, wait however long you have to do, and then just reopen a cash for the sole prop. So let them have one, but because they want those subs, they want people spending on those cards. I feel like that's almost a middle ground to what you're saying is you can get one of everything with a social security and a sole prop, but you can't churn in the way that, because business cards tend to be more churnable because they have higher subs. They have higher spend, but they also have higher subs. So those feel like
Yeah.
the most churnable of the cards.
Yeah, and they are. If it was one each and you're done, you can't. And establishing, what do you call it, language on there, like with your social security, if you're applying just with your social security number, just putting 24 or 48 month language in and enforcing that 24 to 48 month language, that would also go a long way. That's definitely another route they could go. So like reports to your personal credit on the social security number and 24 month. Doesn't matter if you're looking to create a new business in a different field. If you're going sole prop, you've taken that bite of the apple. You gotta wait. But other issuers, figure it out. So thanks, Jason, for that one. We're going to move over to our next question, which comes from RJ's favorite asker of questions, just because of the screen name. Thick Boy asks, how much points diversity is too much points diversity? I currently hold points in all 6 transferable currencies. Is it worth it, in your opinion, to have your points balances split to take advantages of transfer bonuses when they suit you? Tariq, I'm going to throw to you on this one.
I think it depends on your partners and how your ecosystems, hypothetically for the bank ecosystems, it works. You have Chase Point, you have UR points, and you have MR points, and you're pooling them all to Marriott for whatever reason. I think it's valid. If it's one of those that every single ecosystem has it, then sure, why would it matter if you have UR points, MR points, thank you points, and Capital One miles if you're going to use them all for, say, for whatever trip you're going to do? Have no idea what you're trying to do with those transferable currencies. If they're just sitting there, or you just like, I'm going to have 500,000 UR points, 200,000 MR points, 3,000 Capital One miles, and 50 thank you points, and you're just sitting there, then yeah, you might have to maybe just audit your ecosystem, see where your spend is and what you want to do, and might do some slashing. If it works for you, dude, you're good.
That makes sense.
So I have mixed feelings about this because on one hand, I understand wanting the transfer bonuses, right? Like transfer bonuses are great. On the other hand, this is really going to depend on what you're doing. If you're doing a lot of international flights to like Asia, then basically all the major issuers have a carrier that will work, and probably you have that carrier as an option for 3 or 4, or all 6 of them, right? But you also have to think about like usability. If you're doing this to get 3, 4, 5x on everything, then sure, and that worked for you based on your partners, great. If you're a free agent and you just want the most cost-effective option for everything you're doing, fine. If you have, like, I am Hilton and Delta as my primary hotel and airline, the only issuer that I have that goes to both of those, I do have the option of, if I did Bilt to go to Hilton. Delta, I have the option of having a Delta co-branded card or having an Amex card. Those are the 2 options. Guess who issues that Delta co-branded card? Amex. And guess where I'm going to be? Amex. So for me, on the flying side, because not even 99%, all of my travel so far has been domestic. I travel enough, but I travel domestically right now. Like, Delta is important, so Amex is important, which means that because of that, and because of Hilton being my number one, like being in a bunch of different ecosystems isn't going to help me on either of those. If I flew internationally a lot, if I was in a hub for United or American or different options like that, then yeah, having 3, 4, 5, 6 transferable currencies might make sense. But you have to understand that you are also giving up something by doing this. You're giving up some time that you have to keep track of all of this. You're making sure that your points stay active. Not all points will live forever. Having multiple cards, you're putting enough spend through those cards. You're giving up something. It is not a free system because it does take time and effort and mental capacity. You have to, if you have city cards and you really like mobile wallet, you're probably not going to want to put your city cards in your mobile wallet because then you've got those issues. So you have to keep that physical card. If it's all MR points, yeah, I might have put my platinum down for dinner because that's the first card I grabbed and I thought it was the gold and the lighting. And no, I didn't get the most points, but it's in a system that I will take every point I can get. So it's really going to depend on how you're doing this and what you're doing with those points, and less about, can you do this? Sure. Is it a good idea? I don't know your life. That's where I am on this.
That's fair. I think to the point directly about taking advantage of transfer bonuses when they suit you, first make sure that your issuer and your preferred partner have consistent transfer bonuses. Right now, Citi's been a little light with transfer bonuses of late. They do have one going to Virgin, but I can't remember, like, they're not super consistent with it. Like, they're doing what feels like every other month. Now, I don't pay the most attention to Citi, and I could be wrong, and they could have monthly, but it feels like the last time they had one was it's April now. Their last major one was in February. There wasn't really one in March, to my recollection. Capital One right now can't afford to do transfer bonuses. It feels like they haven't had one in a while, and they're going through the Discover merger. I don't want to say it's turning into a merger from hell, but I'm sure they thought this would get closed much quicker than the process is taken. So they're not able to take advantage and do transfer bonuses at the moment. Wells Fargo has yet to do a transfer bonus, but they only have 6 partners. Bilt has cut back on transfer bonuses. So the only 2 that are like super consistent with transfer bonuses are Chase and American Express. If those are the 2 that you want to do, you're usually going to be in pretty good shape. But with American Express, you're always looking for that Hilton transfer bonus. I don't think I've ever seen a Delta transfer bonus in the years that I've started covering this as a hobby and now like doing the podcast.
Or we're seeing Delta.
Yeah. Like they just started one, they just had one with Mexico, and I know they'll usually have one with.
I think that's beneath Delta to do transfer bonuses. You know what we're flying on. You want a transfer bonus, go fly Southwest.
You want a transfer bonus, use our credit cards. Yeah. So if you're looking for consistent transfer bonuses, Chase, American Express, then after those 2, like number 3 would be Bilt. Capital One hasn't really been doing them. They do them from time to time. It's been really inconsistent. Citi's also been really inconsistent. And Wells Fargo just hasn't done one yet. So is it worth it to have your points across 6 ecosystems? That's not for me or RJ or Tariq to say, because they're your points, it's your spend, it's how you want to optimize things. I think if you're looking at transfer bonuses being the main driver in being in each of those 6 ecosystems, I would take a moment, reflect on who's done transfer bonuses recently, how big have those transfer bonuses been, have they been to partners that I want to transfer points to? Because an 80% transfer bonus to IHG sounds great on paper, and then when you go and look at IHG's recent evaluations, an 80% transfer bonus really doesn't do anything for you. Not to channel my inner Spaithco, but like I did want to present that as something where maybe the transfer bonus isn't necessarily worth it.
So we will banish you hell talking about like that. It's the adjacent corner where I am.
It's the opposite corner from the corner that we put Tariq in. They look at each other, but their backs are turned so they can't see each other.
I've turned my back and looked at it a couple of times, and I got a headache from all the numbers.
Aren't you an accountant?
Yes.
You like these numbers?
It's a different thing when it comes to numbers. Accounting is just like basic arithmetic there.
So how much point diversity is too much point diversity? At the end of the day, it depends on you. Me personally, looking at the system, the 6 major transfer systems, and like very generously calling Wells Fargo one of the big 6, I only really see consistency out of Chase and American Express. Bilt and Citi are in that next tier, but I don't see a lot out of Capital One, and I don't see a lot, and there's nothing out of Wells. So take that what you will. I don't think it's bad to be in all 6 ecosystems, but if you're in all 6 ecosystems, you're going to be waiting for a long time to hit all 6.
There's also not been a Delta transfer bonus in the last 10 years.
You don't need it.
It makes me sad that 2015 was 10 years ago.
It makes you sad?
Oh, should I say that 2005 was 20 years ago?
No.
Because I was a sophomore in high school.
In 2005,
You were
I
6. Let's move on before I send you to the corner in the middle of the podcast.
I got pizza. Put it on mileage plus X because it was 6 miles per dollar for Domino.
No, you know what? I saw you put points over taste.
My soon-to-be wife, whenever I decide to build the cojones to propose and everything and get the ring, Domino's. Happy spouse, happy house.
So hold on. Pause for a moment. Are you going to have a harder time picking out the card for the sign-up bonus or picking out the ring?
Definitely the card.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Because I'm like, okay, this is like my sign-up. Like, I'm either going to hit at least half of the sign-up bonus depending on what card I do. So I want to make it a good card. It may end up being a business card.
That Amex Platinum business card is screaming for you to sign up for it.
Honestly, if I end up going to Hilton...
Sir, that is the fast track to debt. Do not.
It was going to be a card that I paid with in cash, sir. I was going to pay the ring in cash. I'm going to finance an engagement ring.
I just think it's a weird social construct that we have to worry about doing a ring and everything.
Look, some things just happen.
Yes.
Tariq likes pretty things too.
Every kick in the groin begins with K.
And we've got our title.
All right, we're going to move over to our next question. It comes from Acme Acres, who asks, if you won $2 million, we're going to assume this is after taxes. If you won $2 million, would you keep your job, and what would you do for the rest of the year? It's April now. From April to December, what would you do, and where do you see yourself in 5 years after the winnings? Tariq, we'll throw to you.
No, I would not keep my job. Maybe do a part-time job, depending on how I want to do the withdrawal rate, depending on what's in the brokerage and where the market is and how much I want to withdraw. But aside from that, I'd be doing a whole lot of travel. I already have travel scheduled, barring any personal situations. But a lot of my travel would kick in August, like at the end of August, beginning of September. I would be going to College Station on August 30th that weekend. I'd go to Colorado Springs in September, Philadelphia and Denton in October, and then Tampa and Charlotte in November. Yes, those are the away teams for the destinations that UTSA plays football. And I would get season tickets somewhere in the 50-yard line because I love watching my beloved Roadrunners. Save up for a nice car, a pretty car, a brand new Acura Integra Type S in blue with the white orchid interior. I have thought about this a lot. And my girlfriend would also get a car. And 5 years from now, that money would just grow and I wouldn't go too crazy because I wouldn't buy maybe not first class every flight, but I would be begging Chase to give me the United Club Infinite so I can have lounge access wherever I go.
Could have just buy the lounge access.
Yeah, I mean,
$1,400 a year. All right.
Plus 25% mileage plus X.
All right, RJ, you've settled with $2 million after taxes. What are you doing for the rest of the year, and where do you see yourself in 5 years after winning?
So 1.5 is immediately going somewhere. It depends on like the situation with stock market and things. If it just goes into a high yield savings account or like a cash management account, it's going somewhere. Like 1.5 is just immediately being taken away from me, so I cannot spend it. I am probably the first thing I'm going to do is pay off my parents' house because I just like, that's the thing you do, right? You win a obscene amount of money, and $2 million would, I think for most people in this country, would be a life-changing amount of money. You pay off your parents' house. That is just the thing, right? Like I grew up in the era of that's what all of the people who won the Super Bowl did on their interviews when they talked, like paid off my mom's house. So that's what I would do.
Now,
Yes. I would not go to Disney World because that sounds like I would just be lobster red for about a month and a half afterwards. So let's not do that. I don't need the skin cancer after winning the $2 million.
If I'm $2 million, we're going to have an official Stack Your Points meetup at Disney World in August.
It's going to have to slather myself in sunscreen and wear one of those hats that the widows wore where it's just all this lace draping to keep me out of the sun.
Also, when I see you walking down your theme song, the entire time is going to be Rock Lobster.
It's fair. I really am this mayonnaise colored human being, but such is life. No, so pay off my mom's house, pay off my parents' house. I would do a vacation to Ireland. I would do that stuff. I would immediately buy season tickets for the Red Sox. Would I go to every game? Absolutely not. But I could always donate the tickets to charity for the games I'm not attending. I wouldn't charge people for them. Right next to the dugout. Here you go. So I would do things like that. I would still go to a number of Red Sox games. But no, I would take the $500,000 and we would do like the buying the house, doing the big family vacation. Like I would live off of like the interest and the accruement. Like the only thing that makes me pause is just like healthcare in America. Like you still have to buy it if you don't have a job. And I don't love the idea of having to figure out how to buy the healthcare. So that is the thing that makes me pause for a minute. But I do quite enjoy my job. But if I won $2 million, I don't think they would see me again. I would give notice. The notice might be an hour, but I would give it of some variety.
I didn't know.
Like I'm just clearing out my email saying goodbye to everyone.
I'm just surprised you gave him such a generous notice.
My alarm would go off at its usual time. I would be excited because I know what I'm about to do, and then I would go do it. It'd be great.
I've seen you could probably pay upwards of $300+ a month for insurance, and your deductibles are probably stupid.
Yeah, but That's for future me to figure out if I ever win $1 million after taxes. I would just live off that. I would do something, right? Like 5 years down the line, I would be doing something. I would live off the interest, but I would find something. Either we'd get real serious about this podcast or some other version of it, right? $50,000 a year on $2 million is 40 years. Like we just drawing 50,000 a year. So I could pay my 3 co-hosts decent amount of money to just, hey, we're going to do this for a year full time. Here's $100,000 each. Let's go do it. Lonnie, I'm sure you make more than that, but that's fine. You can do this halftime. We're good. I assume everybody on the West Coast makes $500,000 a year, so that's my base for picking on Lonnie. But yeah, no, it would be fun. I would have fun. I would enjoy life. I would not go crazy, right? I'm not going to be that person who like builds a theme park in their backyard.
Apartment land?
I would not buy Cartman land. I would have fun. I would go see sports. My travel wouldn't be that different. I still am not gonna pay 100,000 points for a room within a room in my hotel room. I don't care that much about the hotel room as long as it's clean and nice and I like it. I would still fly first class because why would I change that? So yeah, no, I'd have fun. I would not go crazy. Would I buy a Vision Pro and then get surgery to correct my vision so I could use the Vision Pro with my prescription? Yes, I would do that. That would probably be a decent chunk of money. That would be like a $20,000 eye surgery. But I would then have a Vision Pro that I could just wear all the time. And I would just be that person out at a coffee shop with a Vision Pro strapped to their head. Probably doing research for this podcast.
She only says coffee shop because she can't go to her regular cigar shop because the smell would get inside the Vision Pro.
But could I, if I had the $2 million, could I not buy a Vision Pro specifically for the cigar bar and just leave it in my locker at the cigar bar?
Yeah, probably. You absolutely would.
I have 2 of the iPad keyboard cases, one of which only goes with me to the cigar bar because it's the only way to prevent the smell. The iPad doesn't absorb the smell, but the keyboard does.
So from those 2 exciting answers to, hi, I'm Eeyore. Typical things first, $2 million after taxes. I'm paying off my debt. I'm paying probably a good portion of my partner's debt. And then setting up a relatively large education fund for my child to utilize how they see fit in time. So after those things are accomplished, I'll still have quite a good chunk of change left. Investing in bonds or putting together something on the market where like that money or real estate, that money is continually making money obviously makes a lot of sense just so that you don't have that finite amount of cash. You have whatever you're putting in plus the interest and the dividends and the accruals. Would I be leaving my job? Not immediately. That it would just make work less about the money. And I do on occasion like my job. If money is no longer a concern, I can actually do my job and do my job considerably better than I do. So I'd probably keep my job for a little while. 5 years, I probably would have left that job. I would probably be in a place where the money is generating money. RJ said, if it's in high yield, even at 3.2%, that's still not bad if I have over $1 million in one of those accounts. If I have it in a money market account, great. When you have 7 figures to your name, Chase and Fidelity and Wells Fargo and American Express, they all want to manage your money. So I would probably have some sort of private client account with them.
You'd have to spend another $2 million just to maybe get a look at the black card.
That's different. Yeah, I've seen it. I've held it. If that's something I'm interested in doing, sure. I could start setting myself up to go that route. But I could go to them and say, I want you to make my money make money.
I do have one question for you. Will you be flying mid-studio? Good man.
Wherever possible. So, yeah, would I take trips? Yes. But I want to first line things up so that I do not have to worry about debt. I immediately put that money to work. And after that is when I can start figuring out the fun of things.
Okay,
So
but
I'm taking Friday and I'm taking Monday off and I'm going on a little bit of a mini bender.
and then Tuesday you're just like, I'm at work at 9:00 in the morning. You take a couple days.
Burn all your
big
PTO, then
I have 9 weeks of PTO right now. They pay it out as a lump sum when you leave.
okay, take a week off and then get 8 weeks lump sum then.
Definitely an option. I would make sure I'm debt free, at least debt free for a little bit, and then start the work of putting my money to work. And then after my money is starting to work for me, then start to enjoy some of the fruits
Of that.
Let's move over to our next question. Comes from Kid Cat, who asks, we often talk about the credit card game as travel and often coded for middle class folk. How do you think people rebuilding their credit or low income earners can effectively and efficiently leverage credit? RJ, I'll start with you on this one.
If you are in a job where you're living paycheck to paycheck, credit cards do in certain ways, as long as you can learn to do it responsibly, give you more time to pay things, right? If I buy something today and my statement cuts in 2 weeks and I pay 2 weeks after that, we'll just keep it simple, right? I'm not having to pay for the thing I bought today for a month, right? It allows you to extend things a little bit, which can be really helpful if you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you can learn to manage that, right? If that gets out of control, it can be a big problem. But if you can learn to manage that effectively, it actually can sometimes benefit you to learn to manage that effectively when you're not actually outputting that much, because it's smaller numbers. You're not necessarily putting a ton through to be in that big problem, right? Like you're not spending $5,000 a month, so you don't have multiple cards in multiple places. So it can actually be more effective to teach you the basics of credit cards if you can put in a little bit of work to understand what statement dates are and pay by dates are and how interest works. So I think that can be very helpful. I think, so credit cards, I actually think function more as cashback machines. I think it's more interesting for most of us to talk about them in the travel capacity. But I actually think for most people use their credit cards primarily as cashback of some variety, whether it's Amex points, whether it's actual cashback, whether it's statement credits. Most people who are not us, and by us I mean the credit card travel community, actually do use them as cashback. We just don't ever see that because they're using them at Amazon, and it says, I checked out of Amazon the other day and I'm like, not really, thanks. But I know a ton of people that would just click yes because they could get their Amazon order for free. And in their mind, cool, I got this thing for free. Is it the best use of points? In my opinion, probably not for my situation. But if they can get diapers for their kids and they don't have to pay for it, that actually might be a better use for their money. But for them, sometimes getting a thing for free is a better use than if you take that money out and put it in a bond for 9 months or put it in this high yield savings account and don't touch it for a year, you'll have this at the end. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that advice is useless. But if you can use those points or do something like that and get your Amazon order for free, that fundamentally changes your life in a different way than the advice of putting things in a high yield savings account ever will. It's the nature of the beast. So I think you can learn a lot of things when you're not spending a lot in a way that's a little bit safer than if you have a higher budget, you're spending more, you're outputting on more cards, you're doing things like that. As far as how they can leverage credit, like I said, it gives you more time to pay. This card cuts this date and I pay at this date. I get paid between those, so I'm going to put it on the second card. You can learn how to do stuff like that, which I'm not saying buy things you don't have the money for, but if you're getting paid on X date, it's easier sometimes just to put it on the one after that. Even if you have the money in your account already, sometimes it's just nice to have a little more breathing room. So you can learn things like that. And that has nothing really to do with travel. That's just pure function of how credit cards work, regardless of the currency you're using, regardless of cashback or points. So I definitely think it's possible. These are not things you learn just naturally, right? It's not like you learn how to feed yourself or pick up food. You have to be taught it, or you have to seek out how to do these things. And I think that sometimes is where the disconnect is, regardless of how much you make a year.
No, that definitely makes sense. I think for folks rebuilding their credit, it's going to be that discipline, learning that discipline. For those rebuilding and the low income folks, one of the most effective and efficient things would be like having some sort of budget app. If it's an Excel spreadsheet, if you're willing to put in the time, map out everything and just say, I spend X amount per month, I have Y amount coming in. And then you can look at, okay, if X amount over with various credit cards, whether that's, let's say it's rebuilding credit, maybe the best you can hope for is a Quicksilver. Maybe you qualify for one that has a welcome offer, but more likely than not, you're going to be getting the rebuilding one. But learning that process where like from your opening, you usually will have about 25 days before the first statement will close. And then from statement close date, you have about another 25 days to pay off the card. So it's not quite 2 months, but you do have between a month and a half to pay off your bill. And that is knowing that is about 2 paychecks. Can I cover my statement in 2 paychecks? If the answer is yes, credit card, like starting the credit card journey can be something you can do pretty effectively and efficiently. After a year or so of rebuilding your credit, showing that you can make those payments on time, knowing how to, you are able to pay everything off in full, or at least know to pay everything off in time if you're getting 0% offers, and knowing that at the end of that 0% offer, you're going to have everything paid off. Now you can start looking at other cards to give you more cash back or start laying the ground for travel. If you're rebuilding credit or low income, but you are interested in doing one big trip to learn the benefits of the travel side of things, 1 or 2 welcome offers a year can be helpful to start building that balance. And then that's going to be like a multi-year process to do that big trip. But when you do that big trip, you'll know that your discipline and everything paid off because you were able to do that big trip on points. If your income still stays the same, looking to grow your income would be better than overspending on your credit cards. As long as you keep to that discipline of having that budget, spending effectively, paying off your credit cards effectively, you can do that one big trip every so often.
It also matters like why your credit is bad. Like if you're married to somebody and they opened a card in your name or they had terrible credit and it hurt you, that's very different from you racked up $20,000 in credit card debt and now you're trying to figure out how to use credit cards as a tool instead of something that hurts you. So that's also going to super matter. She had no idea how to close her credit reports or freeze them. She never had a credit card of her own. She never got into credit cards. Her credit was destroyed, and I gave her some tips and worked with her to help her do what she had to do to get those taken off and do different things. But like why your credit is bad, if it's something like that, you're going to be in a much different place to get yourself back than you just overspent. And sometimes it's not as simple as just overspent, but having debt and fixing it versus other options.
Nah, you're good. I was formulating my answer because it might be a lengthy one, but you're good.
If you're just at the beginning, budgeting, learning that discipline is huge. If you've fallen into bad credit for any number of ways and you're rebuilding, there are various steps based on whatever the situation is. If your identity was effectively stolen from by a spouse and they committed fraud, that's going to be one thing. If you put yourself in a position where you had to declare bankruptcy, that's yet another thing, right? How you got to where you got also matters, as RJ said.
So I like this answer mostly because I fell into the latter category of the lower income earners at the time. And granted, I was a low income earner and I also racked up not a lot of debt, but even like a good 4 figures of debt is pretty ridiculous. But I took the approach when I was working and going to school full time and want to get back in the credit card game after I paid off my cards. First thing I did was find like your local bank or credit union who you have a better relationship with so that your approval odds will be better, and just stick with that one card. And I only say one card just so you can get used to how the system works, your statement balance, your closing balance. You get used to those dates, your due date, and it allows you to budget easy when you're just dealing with one card. And with that, you got to have your budget. There was 2 budgets that I've used, one that I currently use now. So I'm not going to call these endorsements. There's not going to be any links or anything, but the first one I used, to surprise a lot of people maybe, was Ramsey's Every Dollar app. Because baby steps aside, Dave Ramsey aside, for a free budgeting platform, it is straightforward and simple, and it allows you to know your numbers. So you have the budget, you have the card. And what I did was, fortunately, my bank just made it easy to transfer money from my debit card to my credit card. And my philosophy that I adopted with credit cards was, if I can't afford to put it on a debit card, I won't put it on my credit card. That's just for like my everyday spend. Obviously, with 0% APR offers, like larger purchases is a different story. But for like everyday purchases, I adopt that mindset. So say you're going to go buy groceries for $50. So 2 bags of apples. You would just transfer the money from your main checking account to that, I call it like a credit card payments account, and just have that balance accumulate. And so when the statement balance is ready, you can just pay the statement balance from that account, have that linked, and even linked it to auto pay if you don't want to worry about it like that. And then if you're trying to worry about leveraging like the credit, don't spend more than, I usually do no more than 10%, but I think it's like 30% is like the max where it doesn't hurt your credit. But 10% or less usually helps your credit on that sense. And then once you get comfortable and if you want to get into the credit card game, I would stick to cashback before travel, just because the simplicity of cashback, because of the system. Now, there is a more of a learning curve to YNAB versus Every Dollar, your spreadsheet, or just like a paper budget. But I think that learning curve for me is worth it. And
Can
then
you explain what that is for the people who don't know?
YNAB, the acronym is You Need a Budget, which is just another budgeting software, but it's an effective budget program. Now, we'll say there's a caveat. There's a subscription price for it. I think it's $110 for the year, but they give you a month for free. And you can also pay monthly, but it's just going to be like, I think $15 a month if you do a monthly. But I've used it for, I think, going on 2-3 years now. And I think for that, it's worth it for me, because without that app, without that budget, I don't think I could have effectively managed all the credit cards that I have. So I think just knowing the game and kind of starting simple with just one card that you're putting everything on, you can throw a rock and hit a bank that has either a 1.5% or 2% cashback card, and just learn that system. And then as you're slowly getting more comfortable with that, then you can start branching out. Just don't go head first into YouTube, or you're going to end up with 7 different cards. And the next thing you know, you want a chase card, and then oops, you're like at 824.
But if you listen to certain finance people on YouTube, you need 3 credit cards.
Yeah. That are like almost $1,000 in annual fees if you pick the 3 cards.
Everybody just
Sorry.
needs this Chase Sapphire Preferred.
Also the Freedom Flex, because you just need the Chase Trifecta. That's the credit card game. Get the Chase Trifecta with the Sapphire Preferred, and you win the credit card. Because you can just transfer all your points to Hyatt and nothing goes wrong, and you can live happy.
What I've done.
You're welcome.
Fair. I didn't realize I was stepping on a landmine until it was too late.
I was trying to get it sooner and it didn't work, so I hit it again, and that was the timing that it put in. Okay.
RJ is just celebrating me stepping on a landmine. All right, so we'll move forward. Our next question comes from AP, who asks, with what seems like a regular series of issues with Reagan National Airport regarding safety and near misses, and for the purposes of this question, I will be calling it Reagan. What are your thoughts on regarding travel to that area? Do you think it's still incredibly safe and convenient and fly to Reagan? Or do you look to maybe fly into IAD or, heaven forbid, BWI? Just so folks know, IAD is Dulles. BWI is Baltimore Washington International, which is halfway between Baltimore and Washington. Tariq, any issues for you flying into Reagan, or would you prefer to fly into Dulles, or trek your way on the airline that keeps on hurting you and fly up to BWI?
So I'm going to try to answer this. And when I make my answer, just know this is a non-biased answer only because of the certain airline hub. I have flown into DCA and I will never call it the other one because it's DCA. I don't care because I've flown American into American into DCA, Southwest into DCA. Weirdly enough, we flew American into IED just because it was just happened to be closer to where we needed to be. And I've also flown United to IED because of how I travel and prioritize the metro and like transit in general. Now that IAD is an option because of the Silver Line, I'm going to fly into IAD partially because of United. But I will say, for the most part, DCA, unless you need to be in the heart or closer to downtown Washington, D.C. as soon as you can, I would argue IAD is just better and just take the Silver Line just because of everything that's around DCA's airport, and it's a restricted airspace. And it's difficult just to get nonstop flights. I was fortunate enough to see San Antonio get a nonstop to DCA, but that was like months, if not years, of lobbying trying to get that. DC IAD, because it's on the outskirts of DC into Virginia, it's just a lot easier to get air traffic. That's why it sits DC's international airline, because you don't have to worry about the restrictions of flying over certain government buildings. So for that reason, just less friction, unless you're flying into American, then yeah, fly in a DCA because it's just going to be easier for you. So for Kit Kat, have fun in DCA. But yeah, I would argue IED is just going to be better just because you don't have to deal with a lot of those restrictions, and because there is better options with transit if you're going to do transit with the metro. I was so happy when I did the Silver Line because that just means I can just fly in the Dulles with no issue. I'm not going to do BWI just because, one, Southwest doesn't show love to me anymore. But also, if I'm flying to DC, I know it's Baltimore, Washington International. No, BWI is just Baltimore. The options for DC to me are IAD and DCA. And to that, because of the reasons I listed, choosing IAD.
All right. RJ, are you choosing to fly into Reagan?
Honestly, this is actually a regional thing. If I were going to go to DC, I would just take Amtrak because of where I am in the country, right? Like I'm in the Northeast. To go to DC, I would take Amtrak. Things like Boston are harder because it's basically a giant L versus just a straight line down for something like DC from where I am. So like Boston, I would drive, but for DC, there's not really a reason for me to fly when I could just be on Amtrak for $150 down and get there in 7 hours and just chill on the train. It's also, if you've ever taken Amtrak across New York, down New York, it's one of the most beautiful like areas you're going to see. It's right along the Hudson. It's beautiful. Stop in the station in New York, do your thing, get on another train. You'll be in DC in no time. It's so much cheaper, so much easier. You don't have to go through TSA at the airport. You don't have to wait at the airport for multiple hours. Like you're on a train. Guess what? There's also probably Wi-Fi. So it's so much more relaxing to just be on Amtrak. Statistically, flying is still safer than driving a car or any other form of travel. It just statistically is. So I'm going to get on a plane in about a week and a half. Am I particularly nervous about that? Not really. Like the part of my brain that like looks at patterns and goes, oh, I don't like this is freaked out slightly, but statistically, I am safer being on a plane than I am if I were to do the trip in a car. But would I fly into it? Yes. And 99.999% of the time, I will be fine doing so.
Yeah, that's why I ignored the safety concerns because of that. You're more likely to get into a car accident than you are on a plane accident. Yes, there's been like there are more attention and patterns, plus DCA is like for the location of being where it is, a lot more eyes are going to be on that location.
Statistically, it is more likely the tree outside of my house will fall onto my house and the roof is right above me, so I would probably be crushed, than it is for me to get into a plane accident. Some things you do have a statistical risk for. We all drive. Matt is gonna drive in an area of the world that's known for crashes, and yet he will survive, most likely.
Yeah, safety concerns wise, no, I'm not generally concerned, especially with DCA. Here's the thing. The smaller your plane gets, the more likely you are to have issues. The planes that are flying into DCA are still large enough to not necessarily be an issue. Smaller jets are going to be a bigger concern because your probability of pilot error in a smaller plane is significantly higher than your probability of pilot error in a larger plane. Now, pilot error can occur at any time anyway, but lack of ATCs is not the issue when it's pilot error. They can contribute from time to time, but am I really worried about the safety concerns with DCA with Reagan? No. Do I think it should not be the issue that it is? Yes. Do I think it's a pretty easy fix? Possibly. How am I getting down to DC? I'm more likely to drive. I will take the most dangerous path because I like the drive down to DC. It's generally okay as long as you know when and how to avoid New York City traffic and Philadelphia traffic. Once you get past those two, like Baltimore traffic pales in comparison to New York City and Philly. Depending on when you hit Baltimore, you'll be fine. Or you can just go around Baltimore. That's an option too. I'm more likely to drive, but again, I live closer to DC in terms of driving range than RJ does. I could also take the train down to New York City, go over to Penn Station and take an Amtrak down to take an Acela down and be just fine. So for me, based on my region, I'm more likely to be a driver or a Amtrak taker. If I'm flying domestically, I'm going to have domestic options to either go to Dulles or Reagan. It's not that big a deal. I would never fly into Baltimore to then take the train down to DC. No, I'm either going to sit on a train the whole time or I'm going to fly to Dulles and then take the metro over. I don't see any other reason to worry about trains in that regard.
Never drive in DC traffic solely just because of one, how bad traffic is. And also, highway speed limits are like 50 to 55. That's about 15 to 20 miles below the average speed limit in Texas on a highway. No thanks.
Again, here's the beauty of driving to DC. I don't have to stop in DC. I don't have to get into DC. I can stop in Largo, Maryland. I can stop in Rockville. I can overshoot DC and stay in Fairfax, or stay a little bit further down the road in Alexandria or out toward Langley and Chantilly. Like, I control driving where I end up.
Fair.
And
And
that's,
Sheraton and Rockville. It's nice, just old.
I'd probably stay in Silver Springs or Chevy Chase, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not worried about the safety concerns of flying into Reagan. I'm going to go where the flight's going to go. Doesn't matter between Reagan and Dulles. If I'm choosing to fly, it's going to be dictated by the airline that I pick. American's going to fly into, the other two are going to fly into Dulles. If I'm on a connecting flight, I'm going to one of those two. But I'm also just more likely to drive. That's just me. Lonnie, when you come back next week, let us know how you would get to DC. And if any of this,
We already know the answer to that question.
All right, so we're going to go to our last question, which I'm pretty sure both of my co-hosts are going to bow out of, but here we go. This coming from Christopher via email, and his question is a question for the podcast, but probably mostly Matt. Wells Fargo has had transfer partners for almost a year now. Does it bother you that they haven't had any transfer bonuses yet? Tariq has already signaled that he's out on this question. RJ, do you want to take a crack at this before?
Matt, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. So it's just the logistics of how it got here. Fair enough. Does it bother me that we haven't had a transfer bonus yet? No. Wells Fargo is still early on in the process. And the thing that you have to remember is these banks are businesses, right? And they don't want to necessarily lose money that they don't have to. So I don't think that they're seeing that they have a large enough population of card holders to really entice them with a transfer bonus. I think you'll see growth when they announce more transfer partners or get people really into the ecosystem. It's going to be one of those which came first, the egg or the egg thing, because logically the egg had to come first. But
The
I
egg
don't
was
think it's
laid by
a-
something that wasn't a chicken, is how it actually is.
there's evolution, millions of years.
But the first
Down
egg
first.
was laid by something that wasn't a chicken. The first chicken egg was laid by something that wasn't a chicken.
I think exponentially would have been better.
Didn't mean to pick your answer. I know that chicken and egg thing because college. So it's the one like party trick for my degree I can pull out occasionally. That and family trees. I spent 60 grand to learn how to do a family tree.
I'd trust you more.
I don't think
Fair
you're going
enough.
to see us jump up because we're already a year in. But going back to my earlier point, like you're not seeing too much out of Capital One. You're not seeing too much out of Citi. Transfer bonuses are a way to encourage you to use, are definitely a way for the banks to encourage you to use their partners. But look at the partners that Wells Fargo has. You're not going to get like a huge transfer bonus out of Virgin. You're going to get maybe 30%. Why haven't we seen 30%? I don't think Wells is in a position where they want to spend the extra money to offer you the extra 30% if they know you're not going to take it. So it doesn't make sense for them to buy those points from Virgin to then have those points go to waste. Now they're holding on to more IHG points than they wanted to. So I'm not super concerned that it's been a year and we haven't seen any transfer bonuses yet. If you want transfer bonuses and you want something loosely attached to Wells Fargo, have you met the company that's costing Wells Fargo $10 million a month, apparently? They do transfer bonuses. Again, I'm not super worried about it. I think it's going to come in time, but I think they either need to add more transfer partners or Autograph Beyond has to completely blow the doors off of everyone's expectations. And with a massive influx of new people, then you're going to look at them trying to kickstart you using the points that you've accumulated. So in terms of profit and loss, the P&L, it's not worth it for Wells Fargo to do a transfer bonus right now. And then if they did it and not enough people did the bonus, now they're just sitting on more points than they know what to do with. Now, this raises the question, when banks buy points from these programs and the points go unused, do the points expire?
No, they go to the CEO as part of their backdoor compensation.
Which is funny because I don't think those CEOs actually use those points.
Funny if Jamie Dimon used his points for Amazon checkout, though. That would be pretty exceptional.
That's going to do it for this episode. If you like what we do, hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you have any questions for us, use the question episodes on Fridays. You can drop us a line on the Stack Your Points Discord. Please join it. The link is always in the description, where you can use the podcast questions section of the Discord. You can also email us at stackyourpoints@gmail.com. RJ is now monitoring that inbox. RJ, where would be the best place to find you on the internet?
You can find me in the stack. You can find me at Do You Take Cards here on YouTube.
You can find me on the Stack Your Points Discord.
I'm Matt Clausen of the Matt Clausen YouTube channel. You can check out Lonnie's channel at Call Me Lonnie. That's CALLMELANI. It's all one word. Thanks so much for watching this week. We look forward to seeing you next week with Lonnie's return. Talk to you then. Bye for now.